Yeah, I'll do the names for you. Do you want? Let me have them stand up. Okay. I'm here. Yeah, I got the idea.
Just gonna put
You
this-
good?
Yep. I work here as a coffee maker.
Okay,
While I speak,
you're
so
doing
I
good.
think I'm good.
Is there anything else you want me to say? What? They say it has. I don't know. It's been in Josh. Josh is just okay. Hey, I've got it. Good morning. Welcome. I welcome all of you here in the audience and those of us joining on the live streaming. Particularly for you in the audience, this is very important. You turn these little devices off so we won't be interrupting our great speaker today. And I'll give you time, so check your purse, check your pocket, make sure you have them off. I've got, wow. Well, first of all, I should say welcome to fall. We've yeah, it always amazes me. I hope the temperature doesn't just drop instantly because it's fall. And we've had a beautiful Labor Day, and it's so nice to see you. You feel like you're coming back to school. Sometimes as a school teacher, I always thought, the fall, even though I wasn't going, I was going back to school. I have a couple of announcements. Listen, if you are looking for something to do, Hasp has a lot to do, and you might say, whoa, I don't know if I can do all that. But pick and choose and do what you can. Our membership continues to grow. I think I'll announce initially that Ralph is no longer taking pictures for our picture directory of our members, but he is taking at new member orientation, new members. So they will be in soon. That book will be out, hopefully. The slide with the names on that you have seen rotating here includes all members who have joined up until August 23rd. So if you have joined after that, we didn't forget you. It's just we turn our new member list in a week ahead of time, so here at Hope, they can get it onto the live streaming, and you will be announced next monthly meeting. I'd like right now to just tell you the names of our newest members, and if they would just raise their hand if they're in the audience today, we would greatly appreciate that. Jennifer Griffith, there you are. Chris Hunter, hi Chris. Mike and Stephanie Lehman. Well, welcome Mike and Stephanie. Peter Berkey. Malcolm and Sheila Hallman. Jean Obermiller, Trina Brondike, Carol Mills, Barb and Harry Veenstra, welcome, Leon Pellin, and Rochelle Coleman. Welcome to all of you, and we are so excited to see our membership continue to grow. Okay, a couple of announcements. Remember, if you got your curriculum folder, you can see we are full of classes, so remember to sign up for that. Tomorrow, is that today? Because tomorrow is the 3rd, is the last day to sign up for the Trains of Chicago. And remember, this one is open to guests. It's going to be a wonderful excursion for Hasp. and for trained aficionados, particularly to be able to tour the Pullman Museum. That will be very good. And last minute, well, I've got a lot of last minutes, but last minute, Amy tells me we received an invitation to an event on Wednesday to Dr. David Keep. Will present a lecture in the Jack Miller right here at this hall at 3 p.m. September 4th, and the lecture will address research conducted in Europe over the summer focusing on waltzes, four-hand piano music, early recordings made before 1914, and pre-Steinway building. Please come here tomorrow at 3 if you are interested. Now remember, Hasp Beyond the Classrooms out there, and they are going to go on September 30th to the Hemlock Park Observatory, and Hasp Beyond the Classrooms is a combination of curriculum combining with special events. So curriculum has the program, special events creates the transportation for you to get to that program. And then on October 13th, they are doing Symphony of the Movement, which is the Grand Rapids Ballet. So great Hasp Beyond the Classrooms programs. Let me see if I forgot anything. Oh, one more thing. We have had a lot of inquiries about the topic of Project 2025. And I wanted you to know that the monthly program committee is working on this. We have a date, and we have a time, and we have a location, but we need some other details worked out. And it would be an educational program on what it is, what it entails, and what it means. So, nonpartisan. The date is October 3rd. The time is 7 p.m. And it will be in the Hasp classroom. So, you must pay attention to Hasp happenings. And today, when monthly program meets, they will be working out the final details, and then the office will be getting that information out to you. Now, without further ado, well, actually, before I introduce this month's speaker, I need to take just a moment to say that I myself was remiss last month when I introduced Dr. Stephen Bollrichter. I did not cite Don Williams as a source for some of the information used in the introduction. I wanted to let you know that, and now we will get on to today's program. United for Progress, the LAUP story. Founded in 1986, LAUP, Latin Americans United for Progress, works with the Latino community to celebrate culture and equip people to reach their highest potential. Today, through the presentation, LAUP, Una Nueva, a new era, we will learn about the history of LAUP and what LAUP is doing today. Our speaker will be Juan Johnny Rodriguez, the proud son of hardworking Mexican immigrants with Tejano roots who grew up traveling between cities in West Michigan and Texas before his family finally settled here in Michigan in 1994. Starting their life at the Holland City Mission, they soon moved into a house on 14th Street, where Johnny enjoyed his early years attending Washington Elementary School. Despite the challenges faced by Holland in the mid-90s, including an increase in gang activity, Johnny stayed involved in his community by participating in organizations like LAUP, the Boys and Girls Club, and he also engaged in sports, football, baseball, and basketball. After graduating from Holland High and Hope College in 2009, Johnny spent 12 years in the human resources and talent acquisition leadership. He then decided to focus talent and connections and passion on nonprofit work supporting the Latino community. As president and CEO of LAUP, Johnny leads the oldest organization in Michigan and is dedicated to empowering Latinos to create a better community for all through advocacy, celebration, and education. Please join me in welcoming Johnny Rodriguez to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Can you guys hear me okay? I'm super excited to be here. I always get excited when I get the opportunity to share more about LAUP, Latin Americans United for Progress. We incorporated in 1986, but the organization has been around since 1964 and has always been a bridge in the community for resources. And so I'm really excited to get the opportunity to share with you who LAUP is today, what we do in the community, our programs and services, and some of it will be similar and some will be vastly different. But before I get into LAUP, I feel like I have to share kind of my story, which you did a tremendous job doing. But many people in this room have impacted my life and maybe don't really know it. And some people like Juan Mascorro and Julie Mascorro are aware of the impact. But those people don't hear it enough and they don't get thanked enough. There's just no possible way that I can constantly always thank them enough, right? So I want to make sure I share a little bit more about my story. But first and foremost, I always start with my father, who was in Mexico, in Tamaulipas, Mexico, which is the northern state, right at the bottom border of Texas. And he was second oldest of 11 siblings in Reynosa, Tamaulipas. And his father left his family early on. My dad was 8 years old, and so he started working. And his first job was shoe shining in the bars and in the centro, downtown areas of Reynosa and Tamaulipas in the state. And really, his first English words were "shine, shine for a quarter." And he came to the U.S. when he was 13. He was 13 years old, and he was put in second grade, mainly because he didn't know English. And so a 13-year-old in second grade classroom. And but he was always bright. He was very bright, good with math, hardworking, and started working in the fields in his teens with his stepfather. And they came up to Holland, Michigan. And I remember my father sharing that when he was younger, he loved Holland, Michigan. He loved Lake Michigan and would say to himself, if I ever settled down and have a family, Holland is where I want to be. This place is amazing. And my oldest sister was born in Holland, 1977. My brother was born a few years after in Barron Springs, Michigan, near Benton Harbor, where we were for a time. And then my sister, who's 2 years older than me, was born in Westlaco, Texas, which is where my mom's from, the Mercedes Westlaco area, which is the bottom tip of Texas. And then I was born in Kalamazoo. And so we lived in these little West Michigan towns, and then we went back to Texas. And then in 1994, we came to Holland, and my family really didn't know anybody in Holland. And so, like she was sharing, we started at the Holland City Mission. And I gotta give you some more details of that because it's so important and relevant to what I do today. But we started back then. How many of you were in Holland in the mid-90s? Awesome. Great. Then you guys will understand. The city mission's on 7th Street. And back then, they only had that building. So the men would be in the basement, and the women and children would be upstairs. And so I vividly remember that time. and not understanding why we couldn't sleep with our father. And so we were there for a little bit, and then we moved into a house. It was called Villa Aurora. I don't know if that rings a bell for anyone. But you know where Taco Bar is on 8th Street there? There's a house right next to it, and I think it's a halfway house or men's recovery home now. But that house used to have multiple families in it. So that was actually, I think, the Good Sam's owned that house. And that was the first kind of family mission that was here. And shortly after that, my dad was always skilled with mechanical work, and he started working at Hayworth and as a third shift high-low operator. And my mom started working at Gentex on the production line. And so that gave them some upward mobility, opportunity to put down roots. And at that time, we were able to rent a home on 14th Street. And that's where we went, and that's where I would walk over to Washington Elementary School, and I tell people, Washington Elementary School, whatever you think elementary school is like in the movies, that's what Washington Elementary School was like. It was like that for me. We had a great relationship with all the teachers. The principal, she was Cuban. It was Mrs. Garcia. And then I remember the custodian was one of our best friends. Right? And so it was just a community there. You could walk to school. As I get older, I realize how much I took that for granted. So that was a beautiful thing. And in the mid-'90s, there was the gang activity that was here. And so, having older siblings that are 6 years and up older than me, they lived and had to be teenagers in multiple locations. And I started in elementary school in this great place, Holland, and was able to build these relationships in elementary school. They didn't get that opportunity. They had to come immediately be put into a high school where they had no friends, and just they were brown and tried to connect with what circles and community was there. And at the time, gangs were very prevalent, and that's who they got connected to. And it was very much just a cool thing to be involved with the gang. And I remember, there was all these movies out there like American Me and Blood In, Blood Out that we would see, and they would portray Latinos as gang members. And that's the culture and style that was glorified, right? And so I would see that in my brothers and his friends group. And, I still remember all of them. Juan, Cito, Miklo, they would be at my house. They would sit on the steps and get into trouble and do stupid things, but they were cool. They were older. They looked like me. They were gang representing. They were tough. They were men to me. That I believe that was men. And so, there was, if you were here in the mid-'90s, what's crazy is we're all connected by a murder that took place at the Paredes restaurant in Washington Square, if you were here at that time. And those guys drinking on drugs, just bad decisions after bad decisions, committed a bad decisions that I know they regretted. But I also went to school with a young lady that who was my friend in middle school that was connected to the victim's family. And so I'm in middle school trying to process, these guys are cool and they're my friends, but they did this thing, which I don't really understand at that age, and everybody else in my community that's hurting from this. And I have to process that. I'm processing that, it is a dangerous time sometimes when you're walking alone and your family's representing one gang and the other. And so I carried a knife, and I've been in fights before, and I just thought that's the way it was. And one thing happened to me in my middle school that I'm thankful for, but at the time felt like hell. I was busted with a knife. I got caught with the knife that I would carry around. I would be at school with it. And I just thought, if I'm walking home or whatever, I'm ready. I'll be fine. I'll protect myself. And it was just this machismo, glorified thing that I felt I had to be present. I had to stand on all 10s and be tough, be hard. And that's what being a man was. And I was expelled from my 7th grade school year. And I wasn't a bad student. I didn't come from a home that was lacking love or support. Both my parents loved all of us very much, and they worked very hard to try to give us a life with opportunities, a life that they didn't have. And it's just a tough situation. And still today, Latinos face that, and others in our community, that two parents have to work. And you can barely, I don't know if you can rent a house on 14th Street anymore with working at Gentex in Hayworth. That's the reality of today, especially in the production. And so I didn't come from that home. I was always involved in sports. My schooling was great. And I got called into the office. And I remember Frank Garcia was the principal of West Middle School. And they expelled me for the rest of my 7th grade year. And I remember my dad was one of those Tejano, belt wearing with a huge belt buckle dad. So he would point to that, so you knew what was coming. And but I remember seeing just how disappointed he was. And I remember thinking, and still to this day I have this burden of, they left everything. I can't imagine leaving where I'm from to go somewhere else and leave all my whole family behind to give us a better opportunity. So I remember being so disappointed on disappointing my family. I had brought shame onto my family, and that hurt me, and I knew that hurt my father, and I just always wanted to make my parents proud, and that really was difficult for me. I had a white teacher. His name was Mark Van Harmelen, and he's still at the Holland High School today. And he would bring my schoolwork to my house and sit on my steps, and we would go to the old Holland High School upstairs, and we would work through my schoolwork. So because of him, I was able to continue with my schooling. And my dad, I remember thinking, I loved baseball at the time. And really, I didn't see a lot of anything else, so I just thought I would be a professional baseball player. Like, I could be that. And I worked all the time for it, and it was just a fun game for me. And so I was decent. I was pretty good at it. And my dad was like, look, I know you messed up, but I'm going to let you play baseball this year. And that was huge for me. My dad could have been like, you're not doing anything. And I could have gotten worse. I was always involved with the Boys and Girls Club right down the road. And I got involved with them and stayed active and built a really great community of other young people that wanted to do something different. And so got reinstated, and my high school experience was amazing. I loved my high school experience. And then I get out of high school, and the real world punches me in the face. Says, you're not going to be a professional athlete. You're 5'6", 120 pounds. So let's figure out what you can do. And so really, I had friends that were going to college, friends that went into teaching, and I didn't even know I wanted to go to college till my senior year, just because some friends went. I went into teaching because some friends went in there. I graduated in 2009, right after 2008, and there was no teaching jobs. And so I got into HR and staffing, and that's where I stayed. I just worked really hard. I had great gifts and realized that I didn't really want to do teaching, but I know I wanted to work with people. And I was gifted. I had great gifts of building connections, building bridges. And after 12, 13 years in that field and industry, and even throughout, I was the first Boys and Girls Club alumni to be on the board of the Boys and Girls Club. I had coached at Holland High at the JV level for 5 years playing for basketball, coached baseball. So I was involved in my community, and it was so important to me to impact young people that were maybe going through the same things that I had gone through, that didn't see others or see careers, see opportunities that were there for me and for them. And so it was important for me to just be in the community. But I'm also first generation everything and trying to make as much money as I can. That's literally all I was focused on, is make as much money as you can, because when you can make a lot of money, you can solve all your problems. Right? More money, more problems, right? That's the rap game. After 2016 and 2020, something was burning inside me that said, what could I do more for my community? I never thought nonprofit was an option to have a career. I took a $20,000 pay cut in my first year at LAUP. I knew LAUP. I sang at one of their fiestas when I was 7 years old, a Vicente Fernandez song, Llaves de mi Alma. I was involved with them, but I remember as I got out of high school and in college, it's just like, what is LAUP doing? What is LAUP doing? Are they still doing what they used to do? And I remember they were struggling with just lack of leadership and just consistency wasn't there in leadership. You know, there was a time that they had no executive director for 3 years, and one of the years is COVID. And so the model for LAUP was, from 1964, was let's do events and we'll fundraise off of events. COVID didn't allow you to have events. And so that hurt the organization. And then, like any organization that's been around for 60 years, ebbs and flow, but COVID really impacted negatively LAUP. And so they moved out of Midtown, and they were in a back room of a church, and that's where I started. In October 2021, this year will be 3 years. And what I go through today is been the work of not only me, but people in our community like Juan and Julie Mascorro, our team, our board. And quite frankly, now that I'm in here, I recognize how difficult it is being a Latino-led organization. We don't typically come from wealth or philanthropy in this area. And so it's really difficult for us to break into the fundraising that other nonprofits do. And I recognize that the privilege that I had growing up here was the relationships I built and the relationships I've had. And going to a church, going to Holland Public Schools, my relationships at Hope College, all of this helped create ways for LAUP to do that fundraising better and better connected and have more visibility in the work that we're doing. But the other thing we needed to do was LAUP needed to lead for our community. Our community was looking at us, and if you've ever had to serve Latinos, it's one of the hardest things ever. When you're serving Latinos, because they will tell you straight to your face that you're not doing enough. What are you doing? They'll be like, what are you doing for us? It's hard. It's very difficult to serve Latinos when you're Latino as well. So what we do is very difficult, but I'm very proud to share what we're doing today. So let me go into that. But I want you to know my story, there's tons of stories like that. Juan Mascorro's here. His family has all that story too. And there's tons of stories here in Holland that are very similar to mine, and yet many of them don't get to tell their story. Many of them don't get the opportunities that I had. Many of them, instead of that middle school part of my life, it went wrong for them. They continued with that. They got in trouble. They didn't see themselves with opportunities that are out there. They didn't see the access to be able to achieve those. And so I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, or I'm going to be angry, right? And that happens too. And so that's what we're trying to work through at LAUP. So let's get into it. But I wanted you to share the story so you understand why I do what I do every day. And that there's many of us here. We've been here for 100 years. And so all these stories are very similar, but we only get a few that break through, that get these opportunities. And we're trying to change that. And we need everyone. So we've been around for 60 years. We like to say we're a Nueva Era, a new era. Our mission is to empower Latinos to participate in creating a better community for all through advocacy, education, and celebration. I always like to share kind of the Latino population here. The census in communities of colors is not really done well. It's not trusted. They're not going through community agencies like they should to try to better connect and trust with the black and brown communities. And so our census really doesn't represent all of us. Now, I would say we're closer to 13% in the county and growing. And then the city of Holland has us at 24%, and I would project we're closer to 30% making up in the city of Holland and growing. The Latino community is projected to grow 24% in the Grand Rapids metro area over the next 20 years. That includes Holland. There's no other community that's growing at that rate. And in the U.S., 136% over the next 20 years. So it's very important that we have these supports and systems and programs in place for the Latino community. And there's more immigrants that are coming. We've seen a huge influx in the Cuban community right here in Holland as well. And they're coming as brand new immigrants. So all these immigrants that came in the 40s and 50s, 60s and 70s, 90s, like my family, they get here and they don't know what to do. They don't know where to go. They don't know how to get resources. And if you don't speak or read the language, it's terrible. It's rough. And so LAUP has always been the pillar in our community for that. And we need to be strong so our community can be strong. And so we've identified where our community needs us to step up. One of the beautiful things that I love about Holland is we are a resource-rich community. We don't have to be LAUP. We don't have to be everything to everyone. I'll tell you right now what we don't do. We don't do food, we don't do clothing, and we don't do housing. We don't do transportation either. And two of those, nobody's doing really well. Housing and transportation is so complex. It's not just one organization can solve it, and it's truly going to take a whole community and state and government, federal, county. They're not going to figure housing and transportation out. So those are very difficult. Food, clothing, we have some great nonprofits in Holland, Community Action House that we partner with, Habitat for Humanity, what's another clothing one? I'm blanking here. Community Action House, what's the Gateway Mission, all these. So there's enough clothing out there that if we can be better partners with these organizations, we can be that bridge to get them the immediate needs that they need filled. Clothing, food. We try our best to get them as much housing as we can, but that is a very difficult one. Resources in our community, counseling, and I'll go through all that. But basic needs, education, health, work, community, this is what we recognize, and we believe we're uniquely positioned to lead on. It's going to impact differently when LAUP is leading, because there's going to be that trust factor. We've been here for 60 years. The community, the Latino community, knows of LAUP, even if they don't know everything we do. Will have that trust. So I started in the back room of a church, and early on, it was something we identified as we need our own space, and we need to be visible so the community can see us. What this does, this community space, is it's a place that's safe. It's a place that's trusting, that I can go to a place and the people look like me, they speak my language, they'll help me, they'll support me, they understand lived experience, they're bicultural, bilingual, which matters, and this has made a big difference. When we moved in here, I thought, great, we got a place, we'll be good for the next 5 years. Within the first year, so many opportunities presented itself on how we could better serve our community that right now we have 3 people in one office, 2 in another, 2 in another. And so we're starting to outgrow this. There's one entrance, one exit, and multiple rooms where programming happens. So it's not functioning right now the way it is. And so that's my job and our board's job to solve that problem, and we're working on that. But we have a community space on 17th Street. Some of the services we provide today are translation, interpretation, form assistance. So one of the other big needs in our community is language access. There is not enough across industry, across sector. Education, healthcare, employment, there is not enough language access. And what I mean by that is material in Spanish and other languages. We have Afghan families here, Ukrainian families here. So there's just not enough Spanish material. There's not signage, waymaking, those things. Our community also needs help with translating documents. We do that. We have a language service at LAUP at a very minimal cost for them. And then what we also said is, you know what? I've learned over these last few years that I've been leading LAUP, most organizations want to better serve the Latino community and the Spanish-speaking community, but they don't know how. And why don't they know how? Because there's none of us in those key roles, in those leadership roles, making those decisions. And so that uniquely positions LAUP for them to partner with LAUP, for us to be a bridge. And the other stuff is long-term change, and I'll talk about that. But what can we do right now immediately is serve our community in the way they need it, and then step into the gap for the organizations and for the companies and other nonprofits. We work with the city, county, we do translations for all of them because they're not doing it at a level that needs to be done, and so that's where we can step into. State and county resources. I sit on the Hispanic Latino Commission, which is the oldest commission in the state of Michigan. We're appointed by the governor. And so, we're bringing state and county resources. MDHHS Navigator is at LAUP, again, a trusted place, a trusted person, on Tuesdays from 1 to 4. Every Tuesday, somebody can come to LAUP to access assistance from the state or whatever they need through an MDHHS. And then we also have an Ottawa County kiosk. So if anybody needed to communicate with the Ottawa County courts, scan any documents in, pay any fines, or pay whatever they need to, they can do it through this kiosk that Ottawa County is piloting, and that's at LAUP as well. If you have family court, where's that at? Family court's in Grand Haven. How far is Grand Haven? It's a world away if you don't have transportation. So these are barriers that we're trying to step into and remove. Counseling. Man, our community needed counseling even before COVID, but COVID made it even worse. And so we knew that wasn't getting adequately done. We're not clinicians. We don't have clinicians on our staff. So we started a partnership with Bethany Christian Services, and they had 2 bilingual, bicultural clinicians that would come to LAUP. And they've recently, bilingual, bicultural clinicians are like unicorns. And so when they had 2, it was like, great, we can do it at LAUP. And at the time, it was within that first year, we didn't have anybody in those offices, so it was perfect. And one of them left, and so it started getting more difficult, and then we started to fill out our office. And so we still have this partnership with Bethany Christian Services, but it's not a private setting in the way, the size, and the people that we have in the office now. And so now we just refer to Bethany Christian Services, but they're backlogged. There's not enough clinicians across the board, but definitely bicultural, bilingual. So we're still working with them. We're actually working on a grant to have our own clinician at LAUP. So we want to be able to do that. We started with financial empowerment. Again, early on, what was LAUP doing? We had a youth program, and that had minimal impact, but that's kind of what we did. But we knew our community needed the same resources that all of us do. What's a good bank to go to? What's a bank account? How do we use it? Now there's apps for everything. So our community needs to know that. How are we using credit, and how does that affect us when we try and buy a home? So the community came out for those things, and we still do that, but we incorporate them to all the programs that we do today. So I didn't ask Juan and Julie to come up to give you a presentation on the salserinas because I wanted to plug them for Thursday nights. So if you want to learn how to dance salsa rueda, you don't need a partner. Julie and Juan are experts. They'll say they're not, but they are. And they do this at LAUP on Thursdays at 7 p.m. So you can reach out to LAUP, you can connect with Julie and Juan. But it was really about Juan and Julie, and the instructor at the time came to me. I was in the back room of the church. They're like, we need more space than our living room. And then the more I learned about it is our community suffers disproportionately to other communities with Alzheimer's and diabetes. And so what could we do? And this was, prior to COVID, our seniors kind of get left alone. And so they don't have this community, and many of them, if they were immigrants, if you guys grew up here, you know how close you are to your friend group. All those immigrants left that behind. So there's no community for them. And so this is what we thought. I was like, this has to be a LAUP program. Let's do it. And what we've learned is, through movement and music, you're combating, you're working against these diseases. And you're building community. And what's been great about Salserinas is you have all socioeconomic classes, different races, and they're all out building community together, a big melting pot. And so we love this program, and you'll see them out at Tulip Time, and they're out now. They've started this little small group, and now they go out and do festivals and dance. And every now and then we'll walk into our office, and there was cake because it was somebody's birthday, right? And so, like, that's community. That's huge. So we love that. So living out our mission, that's what we needed to get back to as LAUP. I came in, I said, look, I understand our board's a mess. We're having minimal impact. What is our mission? Why do we exist? And how do we identify where our community needs us to lead and step into? I have the advantage of being from here, and I recognize that we don't have to be everything to everybody. But our Latino community needs us to lead in certain areas. And so this is what we're doing today. I've been leading LAUP for the last 3 years. I talk about transformative programming. That's what we're focused on. We have a resource navigator, which I'll talk about. We have the language service, and I feel those are immediate needs. Those are right now. I need resources right now. I need food right now. I need clothing right now. We'll work with you. We'll walk with you. We'll help you get those things. But how do we focus on transformative programming to where we get you out of just survival mode? And number one, it's not that our community can't. One of the biggest things that I learned of is they need tools and resources, and then they need self-confidence. That's one of the biggest things is our confidence isn't there to be able to do it, and that's why at LAUP we walk with you, and that gives you that confidence. And we work with you to find the tools and resources, but it's not for a lack of trying or wanting. They just don't see themselves. They don't have this access to opportunity right now, and we're working to change that. So these are the things that over the last 3 years we've identified, and I think there could be one of those circles that ends up being health eventually, and Salserinas is part of that. But right now what we do is community resource navigation. Celebrations with Salserinas is celebrating the culture, but we do celebrations throughout the year. Small Business Hub, which we started this year. Workforce Development, which is Educate, Elevate. That's our workforce development program. And K through 12 development. So we're trying to get younger and younger in our youth programs. We'll have a middle school program within the next 2 years. We're already in elementary school, and other schools are talking about us about being in their elementary schools. And then we're in Grand Haven, West Ottawa high schools, and starting this month we'll be in Fenville High School. So we're leading along the lakeshore is the vision that we have, because what we do here, there's vast growing Latino community along the lakeshore as well, and they need those services too. So I feel like it's our responsibility to lead along the lakeshore. And then language and services. So I'll talk more through those, but one of my favorite organizations in terms of leadership to learn from is Outdoor Discovery Center. And so I've developed a really great relationship with Travis Williams and other leaders in our community where I just try to learn from them. But if you've ever seen their presentations, they do so much, and they bring it down to conservation and education. And they say, this is what we do. And so we do so much too. I'm trying to say, this is what we do. But our community needs us to be in these areas, and so that's what we do today, and I'll walk through all of that. So some of our key annual events, we do youth conference right here. Hope College partners with us, and we do our youth conference here. We had almost 700 students from all West Michigan school districts, as far north as Hart, as far south as Bangor and Kalamazoo. Youth development, we partnered with Tulip Time for the fireworks. We had 14,000 people come out to Tulip Time fireworks. The fireworks for Tulip Time were always great, but it was kind of dying in the sense of like, do we want to go and be cold and watch fireworks? And so they were like, how do we partner? And LAUP and Tulip Time used to have this partnership in the past. And so it was so important for us to show unity again with the Dutch community that has been here for many years and Holland today, right? If you don't know, the Dutch community makes up about 14% of Holland, and the Latino community you saw makes up 24%, and that's, I think, is a little low. So Tulip Time's been great, and we support them and celebrate them. We're in their parades, and they're really excited about the partnership because they understand that we also celebrate Holland today with our firework program. LAUP Fiesta, we had our first ever LAUP Fiesta Week. And for 59 years, LAUP had celebrated Fiesta one day out of the year. And when I started, I said, one, we're moving back to the Civic Center. And two, we've been here for 100 years, y'all. Like, one day does not, and we're Latinos, we don't party for just one day out of the year. Okay? We come on, give us a week. Annual golf outing, LAUP Gala, which is coming up. I was told not to plug it, so I'm not going to tell you, but it's on our website. Annual LAUP Gala, and then Dia de los Muertos is a beautiful partnership that we have with the Holland Museum, where we just educate the community on what is Dia de los Muertos. And it's really about honoring those that have gone before. You know, and there's some spiritual things to it, you know, in the Catholic realm, Protestant, a little different. So for us, it's really just about honoring those that had gone before. And so all of us here can relate to grandparents and parents that have gone on that we honor every day, right? And so this is kind of a celebration of that. So those are things we do. I will tell you, in my first year looking at budgets, I was like, whoa, I got to go raise money for myself, number one. But number two, I saw that we would lose money at Fiesta every year. We would lose $5,000 at Fiesta. So they'd raise all the money and then have to, it was over on the shops at West Shore, if you remember. We moved from the Civic Center. When I was growing up, I would walk down from 14th Street and go to La Fiesta at the Civic Center. And they moved it because of the remodel, but then they had some other rift with Tulip Time. So they stayed over there, and they had to bring everything. And I said, we're moving back to Civic Center, and Fiesta should really be one of our largest fundraisers. Like, that's us. That's Latinidad. Nobody else can do that like LAUP. We've been doing it for 60 years. This slide's a little old. We were over $150,000 revenue, and we spent $50,000. That's the most LAUP has ever spent on a fiesta. And so that is excellence. That is where our community needs us to show up and lead these fiesta celebrations with excellence. And there's so many people that work on that. It's a huge community event, so we love that. Our golf outing kind of brings in about $15,000, so there's a lot of growth and opportunity there. I don't golf. I'm not passionate about golf. So if anybody golfs and is passionate and wants to sit on the committee. And then our gala last year brought in 115, and we're hoping to surpass that this year. And I only share these numbers to share that when LAUP is strong, our community is strong. We can properly advocate. We have 7 full-time team members, 2 part-time team members, a host of instructors. And when we have this ecosystem that is actively working in our community to serve not only Latinos, we serve non-Latinos in all of our programs. I want to be known as a nonprofit of excellence, and we just so happen to be Latinos. That when you see what we've done at LAUP, we're recognized for being a professional, a great nonprofit with amazing impact and transformative programming in our community. And we just so happen to be Latinos. So these were our numbers just last year, 2023. But you'll see, 2023 was kind of our first year in the office, 290, and I'll show another slide of impact. But I talked about our Tulip Time fireworks. If you look at this picture, it's a huge cyclone. And we have other pictures that show, people with different dress on. I think there was a young lady with hijab on. There's people from all different communities dancing with us. And it's a fun time, man. We start at 5:30. We got 9 food trucks. Supernova, which is a local band, they have a similar story of immigrating here, growing up on 18th Street. And they play. And so, over 14,000 people came out. We were represented as Holland today, and so just a great partnership. Fiesta impact numbers, over 10,000 people attended. We had a whole week, and as we continue to do the Fiesta week, more people will attend, and we have to continue to innovate what that looks like for us. So this was surpassing a lot of goals that we had this year, and we're continuing to elevate and build equity in these celebrations as well. I mentioned Dia de los Muertos. 600 people attend that. We do that at the Holland Armory, where LAUP used to have their dances. long time ago. So these are just some of the impact numbers there. I talked about the 7 full-time team members. The mission gets lived out through people. Do you guys agree with that? People live out the mission. And being in HR, I recognize that for every 10 jobs, there's 6 people right now. And we're all competing for the same talent. So the past was nonprofits are expected to do more with less. Nonprofits are in starvation mode because we can't really invest in people like the for-profit area. And I said, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to be different. Because one, we're Latino-led, so we have to show up and be different. But if we're asking these employers and these other organizations to value our community for being bicultural, bilingual, and being a bridge that they cannot, then we need to start with that. We need to invest in great talent. And Julian Lugo is one of those great talents. He's launched Aquí Jugamos, which was a pilot last year at Holland West. If you know anything about Holland Public Schools, they had to do early release so that their teachers can do professional development. When I was going to school, they'd get subs to come in, and then the teachers would go and do professional development. They can't find subs. So they let kids go home early on Wednesdays. Well, that's okay if you have 2 parents in the home. That's okay if you have vehicles to go pick up kids. It's okay if you have daycare or somebody to watch your kids. But if you don't have those things, what are you going to do? Who's affected negatively? And so that's where we said, we didn't even have plans to go elementary. We wanted to go middle school first. But we were like, it's our responsibility to step up into the gap. And we were given this opportunity. Julian is a young leader who pushed against me a little bit. And I remember, we had some heated conversations of like, I can't do this. Like, we don't have capacity to do this. And so it was like, we need to do this. And we got to grow the capacity and develop these programs. And so that's what we do. Aquí Jugamos is an unstructured play program. Our kids aren't playing like we used to. And you learn how to be a functional adult through play. And that's not happening. And so that's why we say, Aquí Jugamos. The last thing a kid needs is to leave a structured school and then go into this program where there's more structure. And so we do a little bit of that. And we're trying to, this was just a pilot, but what we want to do is early childhood to career, cradle to career vision, and have the programming be age appropriate. But in elementary school, we're talking about, do you want to go to college? This is what it looks like. This is what it feels like. This is what it costs. These conversations I wasn't having at home. Do you want to go into the workforce? You have that option. And employers will pay you for training. The employers will pay for your degree. This is everything you can be, and we're going to bring some people in that look like us that can talk to you about how they did it and what they do. There's lawyers, there's businessmen, women, teachers, professors, right? So that's what our kids need. And so we're in talks with West Ottawa Public School to start doing Aquí Jugamos in their elementary schools. And so that's going to continue to grow. And then over the next 2 years, we want to build in a middle school program to bridge the gap. But since 2008, we've had Adelante and Más Adelante, which means forward. Doesn't really translate well, but forward and more forward. And 8th grade, we expanded it to 8th grade. So 8th grade to 11th grade is really about exposure to college and career. We have these partners with employers because employers were calling LAUP my first year saying, how do we better engage the Latino community? How do we better engage the youth and adults in our community? And the fact of the matter is, if you're not engaging Latino adults, there's a whole market that you're not engaging. So if you're a business person, you know that's bad business. If you're in education leadership, they're the future, but they're the workforce. And if you can't find enough people, they're not only going to fill the gap, but immigrants are going to step up and need to fill those gaps. So that's what employers were doing. And so we said, well, okay, you want to better engage the community. Let's start a program, and you got to invest in it so that you can better engage into the community. We also we go through 7 college visits throughout the year. So they're going through college visits. September kicks off Hispanic Heritage Month, and we start reading Latino written books. And so I was just actually reading it with my daughter, one called Mexi-Kid. And it's kind of like the Wimpy Kid Diaries or graphic novel, or the novels that look like comic books. And so we're reading that with our 8th through 11th grade as well. So those are the things we do. Each month has themes. Mental health is a part of it as well. And then I'll talk more about a youth conference as well. Más Adelante is our 12th graders. By the time you're in 12th grade, you got to apply to 3 colleges, complete your FAFSA, even if you know you don't want to go, because we always have those kids that are like, my friends are going, I want to go. And so we complete that. But then I talked about the work-based learning, and now we have a workforce development program that we pipeline our students. So we make them decide, what are you doing? Do you want to go to college? If you don't, let's get you pipelined to the workforce development, because through our workforce development, we can get you trades, certificates, because all these resources are out there, but our community is not accessing them, not like others. And so if we lead on that and walk with them, they can do that. So either workforce, college, and we've grown our youth program 300%. And that big barrier that we removed is transportation. So we are in Grand Haven High School, and this happened after our youth conference here. Grand Haven student had this amazing testimony of her impact that Grand Haven School called us and said, how do we get Adelante Más Adelante over there? South Haven has called us too, and I was like, you guys are too far right now. And Grand Haven has a foundation that we can get funding for. I don't know yet about South Haven yet. So that's the need. There's nothing like Adelante Más Adelante. And early on, I recognized that we needed to invest in developing and strengthening that curriculum. So we've been working with a curriculum developer over the last 2 years on our youth programs. And I'm going to be working on licensing because these school districts are calling us, and there's only one Julian Lugo, right? And we can get more instructors out there, and we can teach you and coach you. All right, so the Youth Development Conference, that's where you guys were at. If you see, man, people come with so much energy. They get here at 7 a.m., 7:30, 8 o'clock. We go through a 50 employer career fair. This last one, we had 50 employers that had an awesome time at DeVos Fieldhouse. We walked over here. We had just kind of a welcome, and then they went out into workshops. Last year's theme was Aquí estamos, which means we're here. We've been here. And so, they go through different workshops, and it's been great to engage community speakers because these are people in our community that want to get plugged in but don't know how. They want to tell their story to youth but don't know how, and this is an opportunity to do that. But this is, we do a college fair at lunch. We have some aguas and some Latino flavor to it. I always have a DJ typically. I didn't know if I could bring a DJ, but I always have a DJ when I speak. We had, the youth love it, and that was one of the greatest youth conference that we had last year. So we'll be back this year. This past 2023 school year, so they graduated in May, this was our youth programming impact. So part of our youth program is volunteer hours. They need 25 hours throughout the year to graduate from our youth program every year. So not only are we filling their cup, but they're also engaging on what's all out there and how does my community function and how do I fit into that and better support our community as well. Over $800,000 in scholarships. Last year was $500,000, so that's gone up. We serve 5 districts now. We had 33 college-bound students, 147 students served, and then 7 that entered the workforce from that. So I'll talk about kind of the barrier for that representation piece when I talk about our workforce development program. But you can see we're working on getting more kids through college and without the debt. But I'll talk more about some issues with representation and what those barriers are. But again, some great talent, top team. Maria Morales leads our workforce development program and our operations strategic impact. This is our workforce development program at a high level. So employers were calling us, and this is a model that's national model. It's not something we created. It's outside in, inside up. It was done in the healthcare industry. And so we took that model and tweaked it for our community. And so employers were calling, this is employer-led. So we say, we can be the bridge. We can work with you on upskilling and developing your workforce, which a large part of them are Latinos, and work with you on figuring out what it is your goals are. And we've leveraged these partnerships that we've had over the years with other community-based organizations, teaching institutions, education institutions, training institutions, and then that last wheel is that access, career path. So the last data from the community survey from United Way 2022 showed almost 86% of Latinos in Ottawa County did not have a bachelor's degree. And so when you think about representation and why it lacks in every industry, every sector, that's a huge barrier. That bachelor's degree is very minimal to trying to break into that, right? And why don't we get bachelor's degrees? It's all complex. There's so many reasons why it's difficult. But one of the biggest things is, one, awareness that there's access to it. Two, how to access it and get those training and walk through that, because many of them, it's their first time doing it. And then the funding. Funding is a big piece. And so we're actively searching for that in our youth. So that's workforce development, and we're working with that. I mentioned Inside Out. These are some of the programs that we offer through Educate Elevate, and one of them we recognize that it can't just be educating them. There's these real life issues, navigation of resources, that if they don't have that, they leave their employer. Like, we have data that shows that they leave work because they can't fix an auto bill or fix an auto issue with their car. We have resource navigation. And so this was in July, so we have probably close to 200 participants right now in our Educate Elevate. Participants enrolled in new programming, and 70% of retention with partner employers, corporate employers like Gentex, Miller Knoll, Shape Corporation, Modus Technologies, Magna Engineered. So those are our partners right now. And if you don't hear ones that you expected, I'm disappointed in them too. And then the last one we decided, transformative programming, our youth, right? Starting early, getting them exposed, transforming the next generation. People get that. Most people understand the youth, we invest in them, we transform them. The adults, workforce development. Our adults right now, they don't even know their certificates they can upscale. There's a range called the Alice range. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but basically it's the working poor. These people have jobs, but they don't make more than maybe $18 an hour, and they're just struggling to survive. They're not thriving. And so how do we get them out of that? One of the things that we know can transform not only your generations, but your whole community is owning a business and being successful at it. And so many people, it's been amazing, so many people, Celeste leads that for us, so many people have come out for this program. We had 38 people come out. Just to give you context, the Chamber runs a similar program. We're partnered with them, the Hispanic Chamber in Grand Rapids, and they typically see 2 to 3 businesses go through a cohort, which is 6 weeks. We saw 38 people come out, 50% of which are businesses already, and that tells you the other people have been waiting for something like this, and they have all these skills and talents and passions that they don't get to live out because they don't know how to access and start. And if you don't believe owning a business and being successful can transform a whole community, just look at the Hayworths and Miller Knoll, or Herman Miller, Gentex. That's what it does, and we can do it too. And so that's what we're championing there. We do case management. I talked about community resource navigation. So we do that. Marlene leads that. That's the immediate need. You need help. We can help you with those things. We had, in July, 157 people impacted. We just started full-time this year. Betty leads our career development with Educate Elevate, and Estrella is our office coordinator. 290 office visits last year. We're already past 450 this year. So the more the community knows of the work that we're doing and that it's quality programming, they're going to come. So they're pulling me off the stage. Just run some questions. But thank you very much. It's my pleasure to share all of this. And
Are we on? We want to take some questions.
we got a gentleman over here grabbing the mic.
Oh, we got somebody way up there.
What is your total service area?
Good question. So if we take everything that we do, it's hard to track like Fiesta because people come from all over for Fiesta. So I would say the state of Michigan. I'm serious. The youth conference attracts, Grand Rapids schools as well. And then we host the Mexican consulate here. We're scheduled for 4, but we did 2. So people come from Indiana for the Mexican consulate as well, northern Michigan as well. So I would say Michigan right now, and I do believe our youth program could be all Michigan and potentially national. Yes.
I usually participate with my husband in anything LAUP does. I'm not known by anybody in your office, but there are 2 things in the past that I really am concerned about. One was the Tulipanes Film Festival, which hasn't existed for maybe 10 years, and I would love for that to come back. It was held at the Knickerbocker, if you could possibly think about that. And the other was Exit Left produced a play and brought it from New York. And it was, without a doubt, one of the best plays I've seen anywhere. And there were 5 people in attendance. And they were not of Hispanic heritage. What's happening with publicity? Do we blame the fact that we no longer have a print newspaper? Do we blame the fact that we don't listen to our local radio station? I don't know how to answer these questions, but...
Good question, yeah. Tulipanes is something that I've been since I came to LAUP, but I'll address the Exit Left Theater one. I think there was multiple showings. So were you at all of them? One of them? Yeah, one play. Because I was at one as well, and I saw more Latinos there. So, but to your point, we haven't had our own space in over 10 years, even at the Midtown Center. And so these things that we're doing are really new again. And so we want to do more of those things, and we're actively, I feel like an organization, if I can just be transparent with you, that's been around for 60 years doing the work that LAUP is doing should have already had their own building, right? And so we need our own space to be able to do those things, and then it's consistency. And the more we can do those things, that was something that was new, but it's a smaller area, and I saw more people there when I went, but to your point, I was told the other ones did not, and that it wasn't as many Latinos. But when you think about who's driving that, it wasn't Latino. That wasn't LAUP driving that, and that matters. So can we be better partners? And yes, we can. But that's something that was new, and we can do better. The Tulipanes, great. We actually, for the first day of Fiesta this past year, we showed a documentary. And so what we had when I was starting at LAUP, it was one team member. And we didn't have a lot of connection to the past. And so, which was good and bad. But Tulipanes was a big machine, worked on by so many people, and had a lot of its own funding. And when those passionate people that are very passionate about that work leave, that's very difficult to bring back. Do we want to bring it back? Yes, but we need to innovate. So what does it look like today? It doesn't have to look like that. And so for us, we said, let's kick off Monday of every Fiesta with a documentary, and with our small team and the committee that we're building, this is what we can do today. But I would love to bring Tulipanes back and figure out what makes sense. But that's, for us, it's about what does our community need right now, and it's about building transformative programming to develop power within them to be able to thrive and survive here. So, yeah, good question. So we definitely want to do tulipanes.
Al, I've just been asked by our president, we are running out of time. So we're going to take 2 more questions. You have one up there, and we have one waiting down here.
I have a little comments to make from a personal history. Having grown up in Holland until I was 14, I went to parochial school. We had Latinos in the class, but we were not integrated with them in a Catholic school, which is unbelievable. And Latinos would amass themselves, the young ladies, or that, and they would communicate to each other. Well, who do you think they're talking about? As a child, you think they're talking about you. And had they given us language challenge saying they speak Latino and are expected to learn English, you as English speakers should be taught their language so you can communicate, which is part of community.
Yeah. And that's why we offer ESL and SSL at LAUP, and this is what we tell employers. We know it's foundational if somebody wants to thrive here and really thrive and not just survival mode, they need to learn English, very basic. You need to learn English. But how can we teach your managers and supervisors to speak Spanish so they can better communicate? And what's crazy is if you would have asked those little Latina girls, they probably thought you guys were talking about them, and that's just, and it could have been they were talking about the tortillas that their mom made or something, you know what I mean, and vice versa. But how do we bring those down? How do we communicate with each other? That's great community.
My comment is similar. Years ago, we took Spanish lessons from community ed. Unfortunately, Walter Sanchez passed, and the program was dropped. What we would really enjoy if your organization would offer Spanish lessons to the community. We can't communicate if nobody is willing to teach us how to speak your language.
100%.
So would really, and then you would get us involved in your programs and more, thoughtfulness from us.
Yeah. No, thank you. And we started that. Again, everything that I started at LAUP was really, I got calls from the community about it. But to your point, Lita was doing Spanish classes, and they stopped doing it. And then you just mentioned Herb Weller, who's a big supporter of LAUP, and they stopped doing that. So again, we started Spanish classes. So we do offer Spanish classes. I think we have 4 levels now. They're bilingual, bicultural instructors, and then they're high conversation Spanish. So it's not the kind of ABC, very founded. It's more of to communicate with each other. So we do offer that currently at LAUP, and you can reach out to our office to get signed up.
Johnny, you have had so much wonderful information to share with us. If you can stay a few minutes after, if people want to come up and ask Johnny after this, just because your question didn't get answered. But I think what he's done is to make us aware that we have a thriving Latino community in this area. And he spoke often about something that I know that's important to all of us, and that is community. And how do we keep and bring this wonderful community that we live in together? And you're working on that, and I appreciate it, and I think everyone here does. So, Johnny, thank you.
Praise God.
Very
much. Praise God. Thank you. And I'll leave you with this too. I know my mentality and our board too. We're very much big tent people. We need everyone. If you have been following LAUP at all, you'll notice a trend of I try to do everything right downtown, and it's to bring our community together. And sometimes our community can feel that that's not a place for them. And I talked about the self-confidence kind of thing, and our community needs help with that for sure. And then other communities need to learn how to be more welcoming, belonging too, right? But just know we need each other. We believe that. So any way we can better work together to make this just a thriving community and continue to thrive, we're open. So thank you very much. I'll be here for a little bit.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you.
Thank you. Remember, September 24, that is, I know it's our next monthly program and it doesn't say October, but it's September 24. Come learn about carbon footprints. So very important. Look forward to seeing you then, and thank you for coming today.